Coming up on today's episode, the Roadster's been delayed again. There's a new jet that doesn't use any fossil fuel in development, and Tom Cruise is going to space? Let's get ludicrous. Hey there, and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we talk about all the cool future stuff that's happening today that's going to make tomorrow totally ludicrous. I'm Joe Scott with the Answers with Joe YouTube channel. With me is Tim Dodd.
Hey, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut from the Everyday Astronaut place of the internet. And with us, as always, is Benjamin Sullins.
Sullins. What's up, guys? It's Ben Sullins. And also with us here live is our Discord family. What's up, Discord? How are you guys doing?
Hey, guys.
We got Trevor, Sean, Paul, Musty Pants. That should be Musky Pants. Greg, Armand, Be Missing You is, I don't know how I'm going to say that.
Anyways, messenger. I always say that.
Thank you guys for joining us here. And if you want to join us live, you can do so as well by becoming a patron. You can do so at olfpod.com/Patreon. Check out the different levels. And if you pick the right one, which I don't know what it is, you will be able to listen to us live before and during our recording here. So shout out to everyone there. What's up, guys?
Hi, guys.
And to all our patrons, thank you very much for supporting what we do.
Yeah, and I think before we get started on this long show, because people still don't realize that we do also have a highlights channel. So if you're just looking for a certain news topic, especially say you're someone that was looking for some big science thing that came out this week, you want to hear us talk about that, or, you know, if you thought we might have talked about it, just check our highlights channel. If you're looking just for that one little clip, or, you know, if Starship blows up or something, you can come hear my thoughts. Or if Elon says something crazy about Tesla and the stock drops to zero, I'm sure we'll have that in the highlights channel too. So yeah.
Speaking of, there's some really big news that happened this week. Adele lost weight.
Ooh, Adele.
And everyone's talking about it. It's the biggest thing.
Is she related to the singer Adele or Adele?
Is it Adele? I guess it's Adele, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had a great aunt named Adele when I was growing up, so that's why I said it that way.
Confusing.
It is a very old lady name, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure most of you guys know that Elon and Grimes Grimes had a baby, and its name is,
the baby's name is something like
Ash Wednesday times 12.
I got to show you guys my favorite. I'm sure everyone already knows that the baby's name is something hard to understand for humans. This is my favorite one that I've seen so far on Twitter, was the baby's name Ash A12 or whatever. First day at preschool.
So there's like a robot that is now dancing that just scared a bunch of preschoolers.
It's both an alien and a robot.
And then I don't know if you've seen that meme where it's just preschoolers freaking out. Like,
what are they actually reacting to in that? Is it a clown or something? I've seen that video before, but I forgot.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I don't remember now what the original thing is.
It must have been really scary because that kid's flipping out.
Here, I'll put it in Discord so people can see what we're talking. It's so good. It's so good.
So Elon Musk and G Rhymes had a kid, right? We don't know the name, but...
Well, did you hear Joe Rogan? We delayed the podcast a little bit so we could listen to the 2-hour-long Joe Rogan interview in case there's something crazy that had to do with it. They mostly talked about Neuralink, but they were talking about, the first thing that they talked about was the baby's name. And, you know, Elon's saying, you know, X, and then Ash, I guess, I think is the AE part in Elvish, this Elvish language that I guess Grimes speaks. Then he goes, an A12, you know, the predecessor to the SR-71. That was my contribution, because that's awesome.
Do you know anything about that?
When it first came up, he did kind of go like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he was like, yeah, I know. It was kind of whatever, you know. Like, he knows. I know.
I wonder the people at the hospital or wherever they gave birth are trying to, because once you have a baby, immediately they fill out the birth certificate, right? Or, very shortly thereafter. And so I'm one of the persons, because the Elvish thing is not like letters that you can type, right? So you're like, what the hell?
Right.
Like, how do I like Google this symbol? Like, hey, can you just text me that like character you just typed? What's the Unicode for that? Like, how do you even?
Yeah, there might be some code for it.
It's
gonna
not
break
something
the
you
system.
can write on paper. It requires a circle of friends, a fire, and 12 elvish knights or something like before you can pronounce and spell this, or whatever.
Well, it is almost, it's kind of a dick move to name a kid, not toward the kid necessarily, but I'm thinking about like the teacher someday. Every time they enter his name into the computer, they get like, okay, how do I do that stupid symbol again? They have to like they have to Google how to like put his name in the computer.
I'm sure they'll just be called Ash, I'm guessing, or something like that,
Now, I did see somewhere that well, okay, so he had said on the program, on the Joe Rogan thing, that he did say the name Ash somewhere in there. So I'm sure that's what it's going to wind up coming to. I heard though that you could break it down to Kyle somehow. That like 12 is the 12th letter, and that's an L, and the AE thing is like an all sound. And anyway, somebody was trying to ration that it was Kyle.
Huh. Yep.
So lots of Monster energy drinks and punching drywall for Elon's kid.
And just to think, if that kid was born just like 2 days earlier, Tesla would be $15 billion richer. So that's something to consider as well.
Wait, why did you say that?
I don't get that. You said that in text, and I didn't understand what you meant by that.
Well, because Elon wouldn't, he would have been busy with a kid and kind of in this like la la land, not, tearing down his companies on Twitter like he likes to do.
Well, the stock pretty much bounced back entirely, didn't it? I mean,
I don't know.
It recovered.
I completely don't pay attention to the stock market.
Yeah. We know, Ben.
Yeah, I'm short the whole thing. He did really get into the Neuralink stuff, which we've not really talked about much in a long time, but I think that was actually in the show description originally, because maybe we thought it was going to be a more popular topic, or not popular, but just like there would be more to talk about. Joe, I think you've done a video on Neuralink, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done a couple, I think.
And did you listen to the podcast, and like, what do you think? Like any insights there, anything new?
Nothing new, really, that I saw. It didn't surprise me that Joe Rogan leaned on that. That's totally his thing. He's into that kind of stuff. But what surprised me, I know that Elon had said before that he wants Neuralink to get to where it's basically like getting LASIK, and which is kind of hard to imagine if you're literally drilling a hole in somebody's head. But like at one point, it was supposed to be like the size of your pinky, like a little, like 1 centimeter. And in this one, he was saying it might be an inch right now.
Right.
Early stages, obviously. But it was always the case that early on it was going to be treating muscle conditions and, disabilities and stuff like that, giving people the ability to interact in a way that they couldn't because of physical issues. But so in the beginning, I mean, like right now they have those things that literally like attach a cord to your head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing some pretty amazing stuff with that. There's actually been some news on that front with people being able to like work prosthetic arms with just their mind on one of these brain implants. But it's like an old Nokia cell phone sticking out of the top of their head. Mm-hmm. Like for real, this isn't something people are gonna walk around with. It's a lab thing. Exactly.
Ben's holding up an old Qualcomm.
Yeah, just take that antenna and stick it.
For people that are just listening, I've got an original Qualcomm cell phone, actually not even opened. It's completely still in the box that I just happen to have sitting here. You'll have to guess why. I don't know.
Now, I did think he was being aggressive with his Elon time when it came to I think Joe asked how long would it be before people would be able to communicate without speaking through something like Neuralink, and he said like 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm going, they're still going to be just using it for people with disabilities in 5 years. I mean, it's
100% agree. Yeah. And I think he said 5 years is best case. 10 years is more realistic.
He still said like best case would be like 5 to 10. Yeah. So I think he's being very absolute
Fair enough.
optimistic.
Yeah.
I still think that's aggressive Elon time though. Like even when you look at self-driving cars and you hear Elon be like, yeah, 6 months, we'll be good. And then literally every other expert in the field is like, maybe 15 years. So it's like so disconnected, but that's what he does. Elon does what Elon does.
The one thing that I think there's a little bit of loss in translation that I don't think Joe and Elon were connecting on was when Elon was talking about how it has the potential to potentially like repair, in a sense, problems with the mind, of course, like Alzheimer's and certain things where he said the circuit's kind of broken. And Joe's like, what? And you just stimulate it, There are, of course, some things like seizures and stuff where you can stimulate certain regions of the brain because they're having some kind of short circuit or whatever and override that in certain ways. But I think Elon was more referring to the fact that you could bridge broken neuron gaps through Neuralink. So if the brain if Neuralink is inside your head and you have the ability to re-bridge broken, signals in the brain, which could cause, physical problems or whatever, mental issues. Eventually, if we get smart enough, we could realize, oh, this person has this condition. The cortex isn't meeting up to blah, blah, blah. And maybe they could start routing signals through physical wires, that used to exist, but now you're doing it through Neuralink. And I don't think it's you can't remember something here. Let's, zap it a little bit there. And now you're going to remember. I don't think that's what they're intending. I think it's like literally a physical bridge of information that can occur once you map out the brain and have a healthy enough understanding of how it works and where and why and when.
That to me has always been the biggest question I have about Neuralink. There's a really good book called Brain Rules. I don't know if you guys have read it, but the guy's job, I forget what the official title is, but he basically, studies the brain to try to understand how it works. And he wrote another one too, Brain Rules for Baby, which is equally as good. But throughout the whole thing, he's basically like, we really don't know much about how or why things are. Like, where do thoughts actually come from? Is there a certain part of the brain? How do those things like? So he was very much like, we don't know so much. So I think that's where I see a big gap in like what Elon is kind of saying and maybe what reality is. I don't know, maybe he has access to some other scientists that are smarter than the guy that wrote that book. But my impression after reading that was like, like doing anything kind of like the more advanced things, like not having to speak, seems a bit far-fetched based on our basically like almost complete lack of knowledge of how those bits work. Like we can say, oh, this little thing moves your arm, right? But there's so much more that we don't even comprehend. So I don't know.
But
like I'm excited that I can help people, but I really call into doubt the whole like, not speaking, ever.
I think that's actually one of the easier ones. I think
really?
Speech, absolutely, because
thought though, you're talking about reading thoughts.
Absolutely. We can do that very well already with MRIs and things where you basically train someone, okay, think about cat, and think about dog and think about this. And they just literally
that spits out an image.
And then, you just see which parts of the brain are firing, literally. Mm-hmm. And you can you can correlate then what the brain is doing when it's thinking about those words. And then there's a way that theoretically, actually, in Neuralink, if you have 10,000 tiny little sensors, that's a high fidelity picture of the brain. You could easily map which sections are lighting up during certain words. And so there'll be a direct correlation between I'm thinking about grocery store and here's what the map of the grocery store looks like in your brain. And the computer has to learn through machine learning. You flag it a couple times. You say, you think grocery store 10 times and say yes, 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 yes. And then all of a sudden, boom, it knows how you're thinking of grocery store.
Mm-hmm. I imagine you use the word map a few times there. I think that's the right word to use because everybody's brain is wired just a bit differently. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have certain cortexes that handle things and that's pretty standard, but I am very curious, like what the configuration process is going to be once you get a Neuralink installed in your head, like kind of what you were just saying, like think about this, or I imagine the first non-physical disability uses for it would be literally an interface between us and a computer that doesn't require us typing, you know, where you can just
Yeah.
literally move the mouse around with your mind and just, you know, think, I want to Google this, and it just Googles it, kind of thing. But or basically just like using your brain as an interface instead of the keyboard and the mouse. But I imagine there's going to be this whole thing where you're like having to follow a dot around on the screen or learn how to move it, and it's mapping you and you're figuring it out at the same time. It's like a symbiotic kind of thing. It's interesting tech. I'm really curious to see how it goes.
Well, you know, it'd be a really easy way to map your brain and direct correlations between what you're thinking about and what you're trying to do, especially like on a phone or a computer, would be literally reading while you're typing, you know, like mapping your brain while you're typing words so that literally AI knows what you're thinking about, has the input, and eventually you can remove your analog input and just think about it. And it, you know, as long as it's learned enough of like what you're thinking about while you're typing, you might just have to sit there. I mean, for a year, using your phone for a year, it might know how you use your phone through what you're thinking about. And then next thing you know, eventually you just you look at your phone and you even just think like unlock it. Well, that's another problem, is bringing those inputs back in. I think is going to be a lot harder than reading the output. You know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Because like I guess when I heard we won't have to speak, to me, I'm the way I'm hearing that from him is like these things can communicate with each other in a very high fidelity way. They don't have issues of needing to be charged, really, or maybe the battery, like they're sufficient enough to where like, you know, I won't ever have to speak, and then it can do input and output. Yeah, because I think it's one thing to map certain bits and be like, oh, that's what you're thinking about when you think of grocery store, but then to convey that message to me with a good amount of detail to where I know exactly what you're saying. I don't know. It seems like a giant step forward.
I mean, but that exists already. Cochlear implants are exactly that. They take an analog signal. That's exactly what it is. It's very, very low resolution, like horrendously low resolution, worse than the worst phone call you'll ever have been on in your life. But they can, you know, interpret audio signals and then literally just stimulate portions of your brain that would normally be stimulated by your ear canal, by your ears. And then your brain learns to interpret those signals as audio. So you can still do that, and we could eventually get a lot better. And we even do that with eyes. Have you seen where they'll take like 64 dots or something like that? It's the lowest resolution camera you'd ever have for eyes, but it can give blind people the ability to at least like see shapes and get a sense of like, I might run into a pole.
And
yeah. So, I mean, we have the rudimentary things. Now, if we go from 64 inputs to thousands, why can't we do that on a lot higher fidelity?
Yeah.
So like if you're talking about speaking without speaking, like reading people's minds and communicating that way, I imagine you would need one array in your language center and one array in your auditory cortex, and those would have to be connected so that like as you're thinking something, it would go into that auditory cortex and then send it out a signal from there that then would go into somebody else's auditory cortex, and then they would just process it.
Would they hear it?
I think it would kind of be like just hearing a voice in your head.
Like would it be like, oh, like you didn't actually say anything, but I heard it, like you did.
Yeah.
Well, that's what eventually I think your brain would learn. You know, would learn to experience it. It would just reinterpret it basically. As audio, I would assume, or I don't know. I don't know what that's like.
Now here's where, okay, so the speaking to people, maybe even seeing things that are in a visual cortex from your mind through a computer or something like that. What if you could feel somebody else's emotions?
Right.
What if you could actually tap into somebody else's emotions and feel what they're feeling?
Oof.
Well, that's
be a good
that's
thing or
I
a
think
bad
where he
thing.
was going a lot with it, right? I think he was getting into that was like you would be connected at a deeper level that wasn't just
right
the current forms that we've evolved to body language and all the other forms.
Yeah. But think about all the BS that would cut through in arguments with your spouse or whatever. And you say a thing and it hurts them and you didn't know that it hurt them. But if you could actually feel what they're feeling, it's like, oh crap, I did that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that,
Right.
and then you could, and then they could feel your regret for what you said and guilt that you're feeling from it, you know? That sounds like a nightmare, actually. Maybe we should do that.
Well,
I have enough emotions that I have to feel. I need to feel somebody else's.
I feel like there's been a few movies like this.
Well, I feel like one of the things that was unusual is Joe seemed to get hung up on, what do you mean there won't be any spoken word? What about like when someone just like is a wordsmith and puts together this beautiful, it's like that will still happen. And he was quoting like words in a book. I'm like, that wasn't spoken word. That was written word. You're reading it. It doesn't lose its potency of how like beautiful and well written and elegant it was. You know, in the same way that when thought words will be the exact same thing. Like there'll still be artistry in forming words. It's not going to be gone just because it's not spoken out your mouth.
It's like just because we can fly in an airplane doesn't mean that we don't walk anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That too.
Walking.
Walking in LA.
Well,
what else did you guys get from it? Because I think it was kind of like a lot of nothing, and then at the end, at the last 5 minutes, I was like, "Oh, now we got some details."
Well, that's when they got into the Tesla stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's no SpaceX.
And specifically, I'm super sad.
Yeah. Well, let's real quick
talk
round
about
up the rest of that talk because there was no Tesla. There was no SpaceX talk. There was a lot of COVID talk, which I was gritting my teeth the whole time. How's this going to go? And I will say that
he was more reserved. He was a bit more reserved.
And I see where he's
100%
coming from. You got a better sense of like why he said the things he said, but it just came out in such a burst that was unfortunate last week, I think. But
yeah, I mean, and I agree with him to a large part about, I mean, and we're doing it, right? Like in California, we're now officially, so tomorrow, Friday, we'll officially be in what they call phase 2 of the reopening. So yeah, we're doing it. I think it's just a matter of like how to do it in a responsible way. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm all for getting things back now that we have more data and that tests are more available. Like I know in LA County now, no matter who you are or anything, you can just like drive up to one of these several sites and just get a free test. And it's not like some, something a doctor, my friend came up with. It's like a legit, like from them test. So yeah, mm-hmm. I felt the same way, Tim. It's like they were different people. It's like that there was the like rational human talking about it that maybe has opinions that are different than some other people's, and then there's like whatever the hell that was on Twitter. It's like a Jekyll and Hyde. It's like totally different people.
Yeah, but I think that's probably all of us to a certain degree too. But it was just kind of. It was, I think, good for this, again, like shareholders and stuff to not have it be a total, there is nothing that was just horrendous, Yeah, I don't know.
I do kind of feel like there was somebody that was like, you're going on Joe Rogan. Yeah. We got some cleaning up to do.
Or you are not going on Joe Rogan.
Maybe that's a dumb thing for me to say because it didn't work out so well last time.
Exactly. Yeah, someone on the teams of the comms were just like, you are not going on Joe. Right now you're going on Joe Rogan? Remember what happened last time? Look at what you just did last. No. And he's like, I'm going on Joe Rogan.
Do you ever feel like, I mean, what the content of the things he's been saying aside, it feels like everything was going so well, COVID aside, and pandemic aside, everything was going so well for all of his companies and everything. And sometimes I feel like things are going really well and he has to be like, and just like throw a live grenade into it. And then suddenly it's just like Elon everywhere. Elon. He did this crazy thing. He did that crazy thing. And then he kind of goes away again. And I kind of feel like he just has to pop up every once in a while and just kind of be.
I think he kind of loves that. I think he likes to troll the media. I think, frankly, that's a lot of it. Is he knows that in the long run, kind of Donald Trump syndrome too, like that being in the news. No such thing as
bad publicity.
Yeah, like being in the news is being in the news.
Well, so have you guys read his biography, the Ashley Vance one?
Yeah.
He talked about it in there, or he was quoted in there about it, saying that he wanted, with Tesla anyways at the time, a major news story every single week. So he wanted like something, and then fast forward with Twitter and 30 plus million followers later, he can be that news story with, in 5 seconds if he wants to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he has a lot more influence than a lot of the media, which is just crazy.
Well, and That's why, like, the tone that he took on Joe Rogan, I don't agree with everything he said, and I think there's some stuff that he said that I've seen counter evidence to, but the tone was better. I'm cool with that. It was just the rhetoric he was using online at a time when we have people literally storming state houses with military weaponry demanding that they get their way. It's like, this is not the time to do crazy stuff and take on that kind of rhetoric. It seemed dangerous to me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
With that following and that responsibility that he has.
It's I was gonna say it's almost like he doesn't like. I mean, all of us combined have like a fractional amount of influence on the world that he does. But I don't know if you guys have felt it ever, but like I've done stuff where like later I learned like, oh man, that actually. Like people cared what I thought, you know, where like you live your whole life and like nobody gives a shit. But now it's like all of a sudden, and again, not to say that we have some major anything or anything, but you know, we have some voice online that people listen to. Him, that's where I think I took kind of offense to the whole thing. I'm like, dude, you're not a normal person. Like you're like you saying anything, you could like inspire everybody, or you could bring out the pitchforks. Yeah. Let's inspire people. Let's focus on the good stuff. Even if it means you don't get to share, like just tweet or text your friends. You know what I mean? Right. Just like
vent there.
Yeah. Like, do that, you know, have it be a leaked thing, not be like you just freaking blasting it out there. Like, to me, that's where I'm like, like he doesn't know that he has any influence in the world.
Should we, I feel like we could talk about this way too long. So let's get on to what we did learn at the end of the podcast, because there was little tiny nuggets of Tesla news when Joe explained how much he's obsessed with his P100D and started just kind of asking a few more questions.
Yeah, I'm so sad. You know, I said originally when the first Roadster or whatever from the referral program came, it was like, I just hope I get it by the time I'm ready to have a midlife crisis. And Elon continues to help me make that a reality. So for those of you that may have missed it, let's just see the things that are coming now before the Roadster. Yeah. That's the Cybertruck. Giga Berlin, Model Y Shanghai factory, people on Mars, his kid's graduation from college, Tesla Texas, you know, his new island that he's creating. Everything is coming before Roadster, basically.
Okay, no, for real, where does it stop though? He mentioned Berlin. Did he mention Model Y Shanghai beforehand?
Yeah, but that'll come before Giga Berlin.
Yeah.
That thing, they give it like 3 weeks. That thing will be, they already have a frame
up. I was about to say, that's on the way, isn't it?
Yeah. But Cybertruck I was surprised by because, again, I look at Roadster and I'm like, sure, this isn't super important for the company, right? This isn't, like, if you're being a company man, this isn't the thing that you really isn't there. But you could take like a small team and make these by hand in a couple months. Or you could do kind of a small batch run on the Model S and X line or something like that in a couple days and just knock them all out and be done. So I guess the engineering for like the triple motor and some of the other bits, and you know, he alluded again to this SpaceX package. Those things, I guess, are still under kind of development. But I just look at it and go like, oh, man, it's going to be 2025 at this point, you know?
Didn't he say, when they were talking about the Roadster, I want to say Joe said something about the 1.9, 0 to 60, and he said that's the base model?
Correct.
And that they actually have one that's faster than that?
And that's been the case, but I thought they walked back the 1.9 for a little bit and officially published it at 2.1.
And then.
But then he said there's going to be it's cheating though, because they're using some kind of rocket technology that he can't talk about.
Yeah. Which I assume, and most of us have just thought and I think he's even mentioned it'll be cold gas thrusters. Yeah. So literally just compressed nitrogen or compressed air through a D-Lavelle nozzle through just like those on the Falcon 9, you know, at the top of the stage of the Falcon 9, there are those little pucks or those packs that have like 5 thrusters in each of them, or 4, I guess, 4 in each of them. And literally strapping that type of thing onto a car, it doesn't have the greatest specific impulse, but you can definitely produce a very healthy amount of thrust. A very healthy amount.
Yeah.
So those are loud, though. Those are loud. That's what I want to know is how do you prevent that from like deafening people.
I am
Seriously.
curious because the problem is not force moving you forward. The problem is traction. I guess if the thruster could push you regardless of traction.
It does. It doesn't apply force through the wheels.
Right.
It's an external force. So it's literally as if someone were pushing the car.
Yeah.
Or like a jet engine or something. It's detached from. There's no torque moving through the wheels and therefore tire on the road. So that's why you could cheat by. I think someone calculated the exact angle because you want some downforce to help the wheels more at a certain point, but you also want lateral acceleration just straight off the back. So there is an angle that you could actually angle them which maximizes additional grip to help because you could also just fire them straight down and just give the tires, if there is that much power, if you have enough power where you're just spinning tires by pushing down and adding more downforce to the car at standstill, it would therefore increase traction. And
So when you say fire down, you actually mean fire up.
or fire
and push
up,
the car
yeah.
down.
Sorry, pushing down, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yep. Firing straight up, yep.
Fire down. I was like,
Fire
would
down.
that lift the...
Well, that's still a rumor too, is that they can do that as well. But
They're just going to Dukes of Hazzard jump over some ravine with that thing.
and here's where the boys got in trouble.
Them Duke boys got in a pickle again.
No, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was cool. Like, it was interesting to hear, but I don't know. As someone with waiting on two of them, a bummer. I'm just not even going to count them. Like in theory, I have two coming. I don't really know.
Well, didn't you say that they had 500,000 Cybertruck orders?
Yeah, so people have been doing these. So I think they confirmed a certain number, but it was like way lower than that. And then the internet are out there trying to guess how many there are now by correlating the reservation number with like the actual number of reservations. I don't know. Maybe someone's figured out that math, but I don't think it's like, RN 00001 is the first one, and so the latest one is like the highest number. I don't think it works that way, but anyways, yeah. And so those guys have been reporting forever that there's like tons and tons of them. And then Zach Kirkhorn, the CFO, in the earnings call did say that their backlog of order backlog right now is higher than it's ever been. So. Wow. That sounds like those signals are lining up.
Well, if you're a business and you have tens or even hundreds of thousands of people waiting for a certain product, you're probably going to move that product up a little bit.
No doubt. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like this shouldn't necessarily like Model Y Shanghai factory. I don't see how that takes away resources from the folks
Roadster.
working on the Roadster. I just don't see those two things as being, they're like farly discoupled or decoupled.
Here's my guess. I definitely.
Chris Farley?
I think here's my guess is that they see updating Model X and S as a more vital next step than anything, and they can use that to prove out all the technology on the Roadster, get it in production and all that stuff, and then worry about Roadster. So I think Battery Day. When that happens again, or it's supposed to be maybe May now in Texas, we'll see. But when Battery Day happens, I think that will be like, they're going to release their new battery packs, show off what it can do in a plaid mode, Model S, and then that will lead the way to be able to do the Roadster. But it's not looking like next year anymore, is it?
Yeah, definitely not. So speaking of which, did you guys see this about their new batteries that they put out? I know we didn't even tease this or talk about it, but Joe, had you seen this? I know you've done a lot of battery.
No, I haven't, actually.
Okay, so this comes. This article is from Tasmanian, kind of a Tesla-focused blog, and the article is actually there's a study that a group from Tesla published. On cell.com, Joule. It's kind of a clever name. So this is like a legit scientific kind of journal thing. And the idea is that they have this, they are combining a lithium, I can't speak right now, lithium ion battery, which we know of, with a lithium metal battery, which to asking my friends about what the deal was. Basically lithium metal is great, except it's super heavy. So like the energy per kilogram or liter apparently is how they measure it, which I don't quite understand why people are doing that. Is better. So, or I'm sorry, is whatever. You can get more out of it. But the problem is weight, and in a car that would be a big problem. So they found a way to kind of create a plating around it and add in some graphite and stuff to where they can kind of have a hybrid battery, which gives you the energy density and performance of lithium ion and kind of the bigger storage of a lithium metal. And I think what it comes down to in the end was like 20% higher energy density than conventional lithium ion cells. So this isn't like the Samsung one they just announced, which is like 300% more, that may come to cars in 5 or 6 years from now. This is like 20% more, which chances are, because it's coming from Tesla. The one thing I think battery people like about Tesla is that when they say they're going to do something, like it's already done, like it's already happening. And there's every other week, it seems like there's some major battery breakthrough from someone in a lab in some country, but that being put into a car and driven is there's a big gap between those two things. This could be something on battery day, hopefully.
Real quick, to answer your question about why liter as opposed to weight, because you have a certain volume in your car, or available volume to be able to stuff batteries in, right? So if you measure, you treat it as if it was like a gas tank, really. You do care about how much how much electricity it could store in a certain size, right? So that's almost a better judgment than weight, really, because your limiting factor isn't necessarily weight; it's more.
So the way, okay. So, but how much does 1 liter weigh? I believe it's 1 kilogram, isn't it?
How much is what? 1 liter? What'd you say?
I guess it depends on what you're weighing.
Yeah.
Hold on. So 1 liter
of water, maybe
weighs 1 kilogram.
1 liter of what, though?
Of water.
Okay.
Water. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, because in the battery world, the terms I've seen, it's weird. Sometimes you see them mixed. I'm sorry, you see them used interchangeably. You'll see watt hours per liter or watt hours per kilogram, and so that's what I don't know. Like I really don't.
Well, the math I was doing in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't lithium ion right now like 200-ish watt hours per kilogram?
Correct. So
and if this is 20% higher, that would be what, 240?
Sure. So the way, there's more to this. Okay. So I had a big long discussion with my friend Michael Bream, who owns EV West here in San Diego. Old school EV guy, knows this stuff inside and out, far, way more than I do. And he was saying, like at the cell level, I think it was like 230 or 240, but then you put it in the module, so now it drops to like 216 because you have all these other parts, and then it goes down to the pack itself. It's closer to 200. So that's where the I don't know, maybe that's a counterpoint to the liter versus kilogram thing. It's like the overall weight of the thing matters on there. So anyway, if these guys are able to produce 20% higher than that, in theory, that would mean at the pack level, it would be 240. Probably at the cell level, it would be 280 or maybe 300 or something. Whereas the Samsung solid-state battery, which they announced early in March, which we didn't even talk about somehow, was like 900 watt hours per kilogram. So that's an insane amount. So hopefully, battery day is going to be exciting.
I'm looking forward to that.
When is it? I think the last I saw was third week in March. I'm sorry.
That's
May.
Oh, that's just what he said. I think in the shareholders meeting was third week of March.
Yeah. Now, Tim, did you get anything out of
May?
the?
May.
We're all doing it.
I was thinking,
Guys,
what is happening? Time doesn't mean anything anymore, but are we still in March?
it's March 87th. That's right. Tim, did you get anything out of the space talk? The very brief amount of space talk from the interview?
I don't even remember any space talk. Is that
he was
bad?
just basically talking about going to Mars, right? Like,
well, and I heard he said he has a house down in Boca something.
Wait, did I miss that?
Yeah, I think so. I think he said Boca Chica Village. I don't know if that's a thing.
Yeah.
But he's like, I've been spending a lot of time in Texas. So I have a house down there. This was maybe in the part when he's talking about selling all of his worldly possessions and stuff.
Oh, okay. I may have missed that, but yeah, he does have they have a house there that I assume him and maybe a couple other employees or something would stay at in Boca Chica.
Can I just say, that's another thing. On Twitter, he's like, I am selling all my worldly possessions. Like, he's going to, like, dress like Gandhi and live in a yurt somewhere. And then on Joe Rogan, he's like, no, we're just going to rent. Well,
clickbait.
Yeah, there's arguments to be made for that.
Clickbaiting us. I love it.
I think he's just trying to declutter, honestly. Just having that moment of
I can understand that.
Why do I have a 14,000 square foot mansion? I don't need this.
Or like 6 of them.
Minimizing is a thing.
Yeah, or like 6 of them.
Well, did you hear that part where he was? Yeah, when he was getting into that, he like had a house and he had some privacy issues. People like climbing over the fences, and then I don't know, where was Tim on that day? We don't know, but but then he said, oh, and then I got this other house on this hill and it was really nice, and then there were all these little houses nearby, and I knew they were just going to tear them down. I thought, oh, just for privacy, I'll just buy all these little houses too, so that way no one will come here.
That is a billionaire flex right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure all those other houses
it's just
are
a moat of houses.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're all very expensive. None of them are like less than $2 to $5 million.
He makes it sound like they were all just like gonna get torn down. Like these were like just shackles, like shanty town in Beverly Hills, like looking over some of the most expensive real estate. Yeah, there's some shacks up there that we just had to tip over with some hammers.
Meanwhile, real estate agents are dying to sell them.
Yeah. Seriously. Well, what else was there? I mean, I could talk about, speaking of Boca Chica, we could talk about some good news that happened this week in Boca Chica.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that.
So
that's some good news.
Yeah, this is great.
You
news.
earned the right to do that last night in a 5-hour live stream.
Thank you. So this all kind of started. We knew this was coming last week on the 3rd. What was that, Saturday or Sunday or something? I don't know. Time doesn't exist. Elon tweeted a picture looking straight up into the belly of Starship serial number 4. Looking into the belly. And what we're seeing is a single Raptor engine. Now, one of the things you need to remember and you need to note is that the Raptor engine is offset. It's off center. It's not directly mounted in the center because there's meant to be 3 all equidistant from the center. In the future, but this one, they're only going to test 1 for now. So that will be interesting. It will fly a little bit wonky because they are going to eventually launch this or fly this 150 meters. So it will go somewhere and because it's a little bit offset. It's not offset that much, but it does mean it will lift off and power slide a little bit, which is fine because they'll probably want to translate sideways anyway. But then if they were wanting to do just like totally straight flight, what would have to happen is the fuselage would, the gimbal would crank a little bit and it would have to fly at a tiny bit of an angle, which would be pretty entertaining to see too. So we saw this, we knew that, okay, they're going for 1 engine. They're getting ready to do a static fire on 1 engine. And the first attempt at that we knew of for some kind of real test, not just a filling test. This was, on the 5th, but it was kind of actually like the 4th. So I'll say Monday night. They did just a kind of a fuel pre-burner test or a pre-burner test of this vehicle, which is where they spin up the pumps. And this was what, a 4 hours and 18-minute live stream to watch the least exciting thing ever in space flight, basically. I don't know why we do this to ourselves, but I sent my camera down to my friends Rachel and Jean at Space Padre Isle on Twitter. They're the surfing instructors that I learned to surf with, Ben. Remember I was telling you about them? Do you remember that? Maybe not. Okay, he's giving me a thumbs up. But so they took one of my cameras and then I was able to pipe the feed in and rebroadcast it then so I could still explain what's going on. And almost like I was there. But I think my favorite thing about these streams is they're out in the they're taking their boat and putting it like in this lagoon in the like north of the vehicle, which is an angle that we've never really seen before. And what I like
they're
is
on a boat here?
What was that?
They're on a boat here?
They're on a really like a sandbar. So the camera is on the sandbar.
I was about to say, like, how did they keep that camera steady on
Yeah.
a boat, especially on that kind of long lens?
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
no. But so what I love is like the audio. I don't know if you listen long enough where it's just like crickets and like wildlife and little splashes of the ocean, little sea breeze. It's genuinely like pretty. It's like rocket ASMR.
And you're waiting just like...
Yeah, like, is this going to happen? Yeah. So I think we're going to see. Yeah, and then I always, interrupt it with noises and stuff. But I don't even know if we saw at this point. So whatever. There's a little. I tried to cue it up. I don't know. Then the next night, I didn't have a feed ready, but NASA Spaceflight had theirs going that night, which was awesome because then they were able to capture the first time this vehicle actually breathed life with a Raptor engine. So it did a hold down static fire and lit its Raptor engine. And it's still standing, which is great news because after so many, Starship prototypes that we've seen fail, it's good to finally have some progress going in the right direction here. So, and then last night they did it again. They did another static fire last night. So 3 nights in a row of pretty extreme testing. And there's that one. Ta-da! How awesome is that? So we're finally seeing some good progress moving forward with Starship. That's good news looking forward that maybe we, maybe things will not be blowing up now. They kind of figured it out, it looks like.
I hope so.
I think last time it was falling down, even just standing up. Like it couldn't even hold its own weight.
That did happen when they had a testing failure procedure where the upper tank filled and the bottom tank lost pressure, or it accidentally wasn't filling it quick enough, and so then the top tank had hundreds of tons of liquid fuel or actually liquid nitrogen. But yeah, so I think they're getting beyond that. I think they're getting familiar with the systems, getting familiar with the architecture, getting familiar with the hardware, and it looks like they're getting pretty good at it because 2 static fires in one night after another. And we found out on Twitter then later the reason they did 2 in a row, the one that they did last night, the last one, they used only the small header tanks. There's those little mini tanks inside the big tanks. They did the static fire using just those tanks. So that's awesome. So at least in the fuel tank. So that's good news because that's something that will need to be tested and understood because they will use those for the landing procedure. Those will be separately pressurized tanks that will be used for the landing sequence. So, yeah.
The belly flop.
Yeah, exactly. So that's very, very good news.
So landing sequences, Joe, you mentioned something about a plane at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Ooh. Oh, you're segueing. Sorry, I was still in Starship mode. I was like, what?
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, so hang on. Somebody actually sent me this, and I want to make sure and give them credit. I should have had this up. But yeah, so this is from Futurism.com. So scientists create jet engine powered by only electricity. Sounds impossible, but the way it works is it says this device compresses air and ionizes it with microwaves, generating plasma that thrusts it forward. So it kind of sort of works the same way that the jet combination of air and fuel does, but instead of using fuel, it just ionizes it with microwave and creates a plasma and pushes it forward. It says there was a prototype that was able to launch a 1 kilogram steel ball 22 millimeters into the air. That's the same thrust proportional to scale as a conventional jet engine.
Oh, okay. Really? I was going to say, that's not very high.
Yeah, that didn't seem that impressive to me. 24 millimeters.
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
We're going to the moon.
But yeah, it says our results demonstrated that such a jet engine based on microwave air plasma can be a potentially viable alternative to the conventional fossil fuel engine. And that's from Wuhan University. We just keep hearing that city's name. Zhao Tang said in a press release. So obviously, we're talking about reducing emissions, reducing fossil fuel use. Airplanes, the airline industry uses quite a bit. I don't know. Maybe, Tim, the amount of fuel and emissions that come out just from a single plane flight. It's a lot. But the idea of having this could be a plane that could be run on batteries, I guess. I mean, I don't know what the how much electricity is required and what kind of storage would be needed for it, but it's interesting. It's an interesting idea.
I mean, that is huge. That's obviously one of the biggest. It's not a very big polluter. I think globally, the airline industry is 2.4% or something for CO2. But one of the big concerns is that it's right there between the troposphere and the stratosphere. So there's things that happen at that level that could be more damaging or have greater effects than they do down here at sea level. They don't cycle as quickly, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be fascinating. Just in general, any technology we can find that can help us move into a more sustainable future is fantastic. I mean, that just sounds incredible.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole field here called electric aviation. So it's kind of interesting. There's that one, that German company Lilium, I think it's called. And they actually have one that can fly. I think it's not, it's early days, but it's like a 2-person plane, not propellers. It has its own. It's a vertical takeoff and land, and I think it can go 300 kilometers. So pretty good distance, not like.
It's not propellers. Is it like ducted fans, like a drone? It's got to be propellers.
No. Maybe inside of it.
Yeah. They're just ducted, which looks super cool.
Yeah, let me show you. Okay, there it is. I guess you're right. Yeah, they are propellers. Or impellers.
Sweet,
I don't know. There it is.
That's like the Sonos of airplanes.
Yeah, the German design.
That is super cool.
What is this?
So weird looking.
Whoa. Yeah, but they have video of it flying, and they've done some test flights, I think. Yeah, super weird, but really interesting, like, that they can even do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As battery density increases, obviously, that will be a huge potential.
I mean, that's the biggest hurdle in so many of these things, I think, is just energy storage. And so it's just really hard to beat, I don't know what you'd call it, combustibles, fuels, like, gasoline or, jet fuel or RP1 or whatever. Yeah. Like, we just don't really have another option that can have that much energy. Yeah. So, yeah, but this is a whole field, and these guys aren't the only ones. I think they just have kind of the coolest looking one. But yeah, so that'd be cool. I mean, I wonder if 20, 30 years from now we'll look back and be like, oh, remember when we used to have jet fuel? Chemtrails. Yeah. Remember when chemtrails were a thing? Everyone was afraid of the CIA and 5G. We're on 10G now.
I wonder what ionized, or if you have like basically plasma coming out of the back, though, if that'll still create condensation trails and stuff just by rapidly vaporizing, the water molecules and turning it into something. And I would be curious. I would assume though it's still better than leaving a trail of CO2, and soot and all that stuff. But.
And I did look it up. The guy who shared this with me on Facebook, his name is Matthew Sloan. So thank you, Matthew.
I wonder if there's other categories of fuel for planes. Like, I know natural gas vehicles are a thing. Like, I think in San Diego, I don't know if it's all of them, but a lot of the trash trucks run on natural gas. And there's a lot of like city buses and things that I actually saw. We have here in San Diego maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just the one I always see, but there are a bunch of all electric city buses. And this isn't like a trolley that has like a connection to an electrical line above it. It's just like normal city bus running down the street. But I wonder if if you could switch, I guess you'd have to just do the math on the whole thing. If there were alternative fuels that weren't, like just pure electricity and air, but something that's more like natural gas or some other kind of combustible that's also extremely high energy density, but has less of a greenhouse gas effect. I don't know.
Well, liquid natural gas and liquid methane have been used and early looked at for jets and stuff. The only problem is, especially. Well, liquid methane, I think, liquid natural gas is basically the same thing. I think you have to have it in really, really, really high pressure to keep it into its liquid state. So you can't use your wings as your fuel tanks anymore because all of a sudden now they're getting really heavy and have to be more rigid. It's just all this like scaling factor where the complexity of it ends up being a lot harder than it's worth. But I think the cool one for jets would be like a biofuel that's at least green, produced green, and like that's less sooty. I think would be.
Well, some of these carbon capture companies like Carbon Engineering, I think Climeworks is the one that's doing this. They actually collect carbon out of the air and turn it into jet fuel.
Yeah. Have you guys, do you listen to Green Tech Media at all? Have you heard of them?
I've heard of them, but I don't.
It's like they have like a blog and they have a bunch of things and they have a few different podcasts. And one of them, so Mark Andreesen, if you guys are familiar with him, founder of Netscape, if you guys, the old timers that remember what Netscape is.
I remember Netscape.
Any big time investor in Silicon Valley and a lot of companies you know of. Had a big thing recently about like it's time to build, and he had this like call to action and all these things, and it was almost like the most why don't they just thing ever for climate stuff. But it sparked one of the guys at Green Tech Media, his name escapes me right now, but to come up with essentially like what we would really need to kind of solve the climate crisis. And Mark Andreessen was like, there's nuclear, it doesn't pollute. Some say if we could have 1,000 nuclear plants, it would be fine. Let's just do that. See? Done. Like climate change solved. Like was how he kind of put it. It was kind of like the dumbest thing you've ever heard, but it sparked the other guys that really know what they're talking about to do this thing. And they got into all these really interesting different things in terms of like, how it affects different levels of the atmosphere and the types of things you need. So biofuels is in there and some of those other things. So if you guys are interested, go check that out. I'll put a link to it down there, but it's really fascinating to know, like I hadn't really ever heard of high voltage DC power lines before, but I've been really digging into these and it's kind of mind blowing. So apparently if you want to like send electricity across further distances, alternating current doesn't work as well as direct current does. So, but then you have to replace what's there. Like it's like super expensive and crazy, but it would actually mean we need far less energy than we need today. And so there's all these weird things like that. It's like, holy crap, like it didn't even...
Because you're not losing so much in the transmission.
Mm-hmm. Right. Imagine like we have a power plant in California and it sends stuff to Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Like you have to go through, a couple 100 miles of just desert. And throughout that, you're going to have substations along the way and all these other things. And it's just like ridiculous. So if you could have high voltage DC lines that could actually, transmit much further, you would need less stuff and it would require less energy, et cetera, et cetera. So
you're saying that other people out there are doing Why Don't They Just without us?
That's right.
Man, do we have?
Maybe we should do one.
Why don't
How
they
dare they?
just? I mean, man, after Sean's...
Why don't they?
After Sean's one and even Ben's Enya style auto-tune, that just is horrendous.
It's his Orinoco flow cover.
Multitonal, whatever. Singing.
Well, how about we do this one?
Okay.
This comes from Tony, one of our Patreon supporters in Discord, one of our famous, fabulous people in Discord. He says, why don't they just offer a police package on their vehicles for Tesla? Making a fleet, aka non-luxury version of their vehicles would make them less expensive and more enticing for local government. I might not read all of this because it's kind of long, but basically he's asking, why doesn't Tesla make a police package for their cars? Now, I know that there have been some police agencies that have used some Teslas. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can my voice get any higher when I ask that?
Yeah, there definitely has been. I'll start and then field it to Joe. I think, or field it to Ben. I think that I've been saying this for a long time, especially when Cybertruck came out. I think that makes complete sense that's like the perfect vehicle for a police department where it would be all-wheel drive. Police vehicles sit and idle constantly just to run the alternator in order to run the computers and all the stuff on board. Well, guess what? If you have a giant battery pack, you don't have to sit there and idle all day long. And They'd be fast enough to keep up with perpetrators of all speeds. You know, you could literally keep up with like a sport bike. No more would there be sport bikes outrunning cops. They'd just be like, oh yeah, well, we're with you. You know, stuff like that. And having, I got some flack one time for suggesting that armorizing and militarizing the police is a bad thing, obviously. Like, yeah, I don't really want my police running around with like constantly, you know, AK-47s and giant tanks or anything. But at the same time, like, I have police, yeah, too late. At the same time, I have friends that are police officers, and I would like them to be safe if they ever had to get into a, you know, an altercation. And so if they're in a bulletproof vehicle, I don't see that as being a bad thing, especially when it's a civilian vehicle that civilians can use. I would like to think that that would be a wise thing for the police department to use. Realistically, I think it could be a lot cheaper. Like those interceptor packages, like especially the Ford Explorers that are interceptor packages where they have, you know, bigger radiator, bigger all these things designed for police use. I mean, those are expensive. I actually think Tesla could undercut them and totally reduce their monthly costs, because they are spending a lot of money on maintenance and just gas to sit there and idle, because they basically don't turn them off for like weeks. Yeah, I think absolutely that should be looked into once they have the volume to keep up with demand. Yeah. What do you think, Ben?
It's true. Yeah.
I feel like you're clicking around about to show us some big PowerPoint that you've done.
Yeah. So this is happening. The coolest one of them all is Dubai police apparently ordered a bunch of Cybertrucks, which it just seems like the most Dubai kind of thing, right? Like these like crazy advanced,
over the top.
Yeah, exactly. Like so that's happening. I don't know why this looks like a can of soda to me. Their logo and everything just looks like a refreshing beverage, but
like a cucumber drink.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is healthy, whatever this is. So it is kind of happening. There's some here in Fremont, California, where, of course, Tesla is located. I know the SpaceX Hawthorne facility also has not police, but security vehicles that are Teslas.
And Boca Chica now.
Boca Chica has Tesla police cars too?
I think one or two now, yeah.
And then here's one in LA that's also being used. So yeah, I think like it is happening. Yeah, I think it does make sense. Probably the only challenges I could see would be police vehicles tend to have a lot more stuff in them than they maybe look like they have. Radios and other kind of radars and things like that just aren't standard. Now, I don't know if when Ford, sells police agencies their cars, if they put that stuff in there and it's just ready to go, or if it's like, oh, no, you just buy the base model and then you have our guys or whomever hook it up. I really don't know. But yeah, I mean, Tesla, I would just say, is still this may sound weird, but they're still very much like in the early days of manufacturing things and like learning how to be the best manufacturer of things in the world. Like they're certainly making strides, but they still have a lot of challenges. So adding complexity to it is probably not beneficial to them versus like what we're seeing already. That'd be my guess.
Can you imagine though, if they sold it, because they have like all the hardware necessary? Front-facing radar, rear-facing radar.
Oh yeah, they can make the baddest one ever. Like, yeah,
without even modifying it, other than making sure it has the glass compartment or whatever, to separate the front from the back or whatever, and that type of stuff. But they could literally have like all their database and everything on the touch screen. I mean, they could do everything. Security cameras are all built in.
I think that's kind of what Tony was asking in that question. It was like, why don't they just make a package that already implements all the stuff that they have in there that can...
Yeah. I mean,
a
Model Y would be a good fit, too, because I think previously Model X and Model S were just so expensive, trying to sell a $100,000 vehicle to your police department. Base model, or, at the time, pretty expensive. Model Y and a Cybertruck might be a good fit.
So it started a conversation in Discord about how resilient their battery packs might be against gunfire, which happens from time to time with cops, or toward cops. So there were people going back and forth. Brett and Jurassic Park car were going back and forth on whether they would need to like reinforce with armor or something like that, how much that might weigh things down. Cybertruck obviously would be perfect for that. But you know what I was also thinking Cybertruck would be really good for, and I can't believe I haven't really heard anything about this yet, is storm
Ice
chasers.
cream truck. Storm chasers.
Like Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt.
Okay, so there's a YouTube channel, yes, them, that it's one of the, you know how like Google every once in a while is just like, hey, watch this channel, watch this channel, and it just started feeding me like constantly this guy's videos until I started watching him. Then I was like, okay, yeah, these are pretty great. His name is Pecos Hank. Pecos, like Pecos, like Pecos River. Pecos Hank.
That happened to me recently with a guy that makes pools with a stick, but that's a different discussion.
Well, anyway, no, he's a storm chaser. He makes amazing videos of tornadoes and hail and stuff like that. And some of these guys, some of these like hardcore storm chasers, they actually, build these like armored vehicles to go out and take all the hailstones and stuff.
There you go.
There you go.
Cybertruck would be perfect and fast enough to. The only thing I would worry about is like there is definitely a little more range anxiety with an electric vehicle than there is a gas vehicle, and they're in some pretty remote places lots of times chasing stuff.
Sure.
Where like if I chase it this way, and I'm now going to be 64 miles from the nearest supercharger, like I'm screwed,
Yeah, that's
So
a good point.
you'd have to be more mindful. But
Those are super high miles though. Like the Cybertruck, like 500 plus miles.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's true.
Yeah.
And the superchargers are getting more. We're finally getting a supercharger here in Waterloo, Iowa.
Nice.
Being built as we speak. They're popping up fast. If you look at supercharge.info, I mean, yeah, that's going to be an issue of the past, in my opinion.
Problem solved.
Yep, exactly.
Why don't they just?
Good one, though. I like that one.
Why didn't they
Yeah.
just?
Well, you got something for us, Tim?
Oh, we got two more big space things.
Let's hear it.
So the first one came out this week that NASA. So we kind of talked about the Gateway, which is going to be a lunar orbiting a lunar orbiting kind of like a miniature ISS that that's in orbit around the moon. It's a really exciting thing, and it's happening. We've talked about how SpaceX will be sending cargo to the Gateway with a Dragon capsule, Dragon XL capsule they're calling it. And but some news came out where apparently NASA has not officially selected a rocket to carry two of the modules together. But there's the PPE, which is the power and propulsion element, and then there's also the habitation module known as HALO, or the Habitation and Logistics Outpost. So basically, where people will hang out, but also like the Vasimir, or the I think it's a Vasimir engine or some kind of ion engine, is the propulsion element. So those two things were originally going to be launched on two separate Falcon Heavy launches, or that was kind of the I think the leading contender was Falcon Heavy, but now they announced that they're going to be launched together instead of being launched independently. So originally they're going to launch two of them, each of them then had to dock them, which means each one of those things needed its own propulsion elements too, because if each one would need to go up into space and then station keep, and then they would need to be able to dock together. So they would both have to have, a lot more complexity, really. And that does add, cost and danger and logistics. But get this, I guess the new study shows that, and they're talking that Falcon Heavy with that stretched fairing, you could integrate those two pieces, the power propulsion element and the habitat, and they would fit inside of the bigger fairing for Falcon Heavy, and be able to launch it in just one launch, which is super exciting. So that's incredible. That if a single Falcon, this would likely need to be an expended Falcon Heavy in order to get something that heavy on out to the moon. But even so, I mean, that's going to be one expended Falcon Heavy is definitely cheaper than two reused, and way cheaper to develop the hardware if they aren't having to put propulsion elements and all of the guidance and navigation and all of the all of the control systems on both vehicles. That's huge. So this might be a major cost savings thing, which I like. I love. I love that. I feel like NASA is in this time of like, let's rethink things and let's actually start leaning on some of these new technologies and start rethinking the way we're doing these things. And it's paying off for them. I mean, that's super cool. What do you guys think?
So, okay, it's two different modules that previously were going to have to go up separately and dock in space. Does this mean that they're going to go up attached together, or are they going to still go up like separately in the same thing? And
I think they'll be pre-attached. And in fact, they might not even have. I don't know what the study exactly looks like, but they might. There would have had to be a docking port to connect those two. Mm-hmm. They could forego a lot of that equipment if they can just pre-stack them and just have them pre-integrated. Why would you bother? Unless, the thing is that the station might want to be module in some elements, but maybe that's just one you just forego modularity. Is that a word?
That's a word.
Yeah. You forego modularity and just stick them together and forego a lot of that stuff, which would, again, reduce complexity and make it simpler. And yeah, I think that's awesome.
Here comes my, 6-year-old understanding of things. How hard is it to get into orbit with the moon? I feel like there's not a lot of gravity there.
Well, the problem is getting out to the moon. You're fighting Earth's gravity still. Yep, exactly. You have to perform a translunar injection.
That's what I mean. Like at some, I don't know, like it sounds like in my head, I'm thinking, man, like I wonder if you're just, you got an orbit and then eventually like, oh, nope, here comes Earth. Like, bye. Like I'm gone. I get pulled away.
You mean if you're in orbit of the moon?
Yeah. If you're locked in, are you locked in, or is it a fragile, kind of state?
Well,
like the sun isn't going to pull you away if you're in orbit of Earth. Right, it's too far away. Too many other things, but
you're not wrong actually, in a sense, because the weird thing about the moon is because it's it's not as simple as what you think.
We can just end there. That's good. Thank you.
Don't get cocky.
The moon is actually varies in density a lot, so its orbits are pretty unstable. They actually have to map out where these different gravity wells are, and so certain things that have been in orbit around the moon, because it's so unstable, it'll end up maybe flinging themselves out in random places or crashing back into the moon after a lot of time. We're talking hundreds of millions of years or something. But once something's in orbit, you have to expend energy to get it into orbit and detach it from Earth's orbit, and to get back to where the orbit would reconnect with, kind of think about two wells. You have like that's like a stretchy piece of cotton or something, or a cloth. And if you stick a big bowling ball in one and a baseball way over there, 10 feet away, 3 meters away, at some point you kind of cross that little hump. Or like when you're miniature golfing sometimes, and you'll see like some of them have like multiple pockets. At some point there might be a really big pocket, but you could go over a hump and end up in the smaller pocket. It's just like that. And so in order to get back into the big hump, you still have to get out of that small pocket of gravity. That's kind of how it
you now need a big hump and small pocket shirt.
Big hump, small pocket.
A shirt with a big hump and small pockets.
Pre-packaged with like a giant
the big foam hump on the back.
Yeah,
It'll be a whole thing.
It'll be a whole thing.
All the kids will be wearing it in 2021.
People be like, what is going on? Speaking of getting over a big hump,
Ayo.
The Tesla factory appears to be coming back online soon-ish, maybe. If you're doing good in the world, So Tesla Fremont preparing to return to work. Shanghai temporarily closed again, randomly. So kind of a mix. Yeah. It was kind of like just stay home. So apparently,
it's COVID related.
Yeah. So the Shanghai stuff said that Tesla said in a statement that the Shanghai factory is conducting normal maintenance work, and the company made use of the Labor Day holidays to conduct production line adjustments. I just have a hard time believing that there's a such thing as a Labor Day holiday in China. Maybe it's just
it lasts 5 days.
Yeah,
they
just
have way more
just
than
one.
They have
maybe
that
it's
one
just
lousy
my
day.
Dumb Westerner view of China and understanding, but that just sounds like if someone told me like, oh, Labor Day in China, I wouldn't believe them. So,
no,
but okay.
There's a 2-week long or 3-week long the New Year, like the Chinese New Year. No one works for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, they actually have a nice break.
They have nice
I get
breaks.
that.
Europe does too, I believe.
Yeah. Well,
not
Europe,
for Chinese
Europe.
New Year, but for you.
Yeah, Europe celebrates Chinese New Year for.
Europe takes like 3
months
off, anyways, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so they're apparently implementing the new safety measures at the factory floor there for the Rona, and hopefully coming back online soon. So hopefully that means, well, April is pretty much an entire wash for production of Tesla cars. Hopefully they can get back to work to at least build me my Model Y and come deliver it. Thank you. But yeah, there we go.
First world problems.
Tesla coming back online. I'm so like, dude, I swear I missed it by like a day. It's so weird. So I've talked to everyone at Tesla and they're like, yeah, we didn't make your car. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I see all these people all over the world getting their cars, you know? It's like, no, we just didn't make yours. And and we can't do a touchless delivery because of your address. Meanwhile, your neighbor, literally 3 miles down the road, touchless delivery, totally fine. But you, no.
Ben,
we've seen that driveway.
You did a video where you said the one EV to rule them all was the Rivian. What did you expect to happen? What did you expect?
Yeah.
So, what did you guys think? So, I'm curious your guys' answer. We kind of talked about it last time, but past, present, or future, any EV that is real, not a concept car, would you guys still choose? I think, Tim, you said Model Y performance?
Yeah, I think that seems
not
like a good
Cybertruck?
fit. Maybe Cybertruck, but we'll see. I don't know. It'll have to grow on me a little more. I don't want to drive that every day.
Cybertruck with SpaceX package?
Yeah, maybe that.
It's vacuum sealed for the moon.
Seriously.
Joe?
I'm a simple man. I like the car I've got. It's what I need. It's all I need. I don't need a truck. I don't need any big fancy anything. I don't need to, haul a bunch of people around all the time. The car that I've got is perfectly fine. I mean, if I got crazy, I might get a performance model of that or something. But
Fair enough. Notice not one person in that video mentioned the Porsche Taycan.
that's funny.
But I thought there were some comments on that, like, can't believe it. It's the best electric car ever made. Like, Porsche fan 3645 or something, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm totally excited to see Rivian coming online, and I'm getting a little bit impatient about it, but that's all me. But I just don't have a use for a pickup, so I'm not gonna buy one just because I think it's cool. There's a lot of cars that are cool that I'm not gonna buy because I just have no use for it.
It's like the least Texas thing you've ever said in your life. Right?
Oh, I say a lot of un-Texas things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Joe is the outlier.
And for me, it was just I love the Cybertruck. I really do. Just the look of it is just ridiculous. I just can't imagine
severe.
myself. I mean, and I get some people are attracted to it. I don't know if I texted this, but yeah, in the early 2000s, in the O's, I had a buddy that had an H2 Hummer, and it was all chromed out. And I thought it was just too flashy and ridiculous. But him and a bunch of people love it. So to each their own. And the Cybertruck feels exactly like that to me. It's like the newer electric version of the Hummer, despite whatever GM is actually going to do with that.
Yeah,
but
I'm with you on that, but I'm also at the same time just like, I've asked this question in a video before somewhere, but it's just like, what if this really becomes the whole thing? What if once we start seeing it around, people get used to it, and suddenly it's like, wow, this is cool, and then it wouldn't surprise me anymore. As insane and ridiculous as that car is, I could see that happening.
I still think the biggest thing to me is just the single point on the roof. Because if you look at like the line below, there's a dividing line that divides top and bottom. If you look at the bottom half, I think it's actually beautiful. It has these really cool, crisp lines, the right angles with the way it matches with the wheels and everything. But the single boop
that
point on
render
the top
that we
is
looked
just
at, where they seem to take it down a notch at the top,
looked fantastic.
I did think it looked better. Yeah.
Yeah. That one was great. But
No,
and they
a bit
did.
more
He did
streamlined.
say Elon has mentioned that they're going to make some changes to Cybertruck between what we saw. It'll be 3% smaller, flatten the roof line a little bit. It sounded like, and lower the windows. I think so. These might be all the things. Maybe he saw that render of that one. And was like, yes.
Yeah. I talked to my friend Ryan McCaffrey about this as well, because he owned a DeLorean for many years, like an actual DeLorean. And he was telling me, owning a stainless steel car was like the coolest thing ever. He said you never had to worry about it like getting dirty or dinged up or anything like that. So, not that that's like, I guess it's a very utilitarian view of things. Typically people like really like fancy paint on their car or something. So it's like the exact opposite of that. But yeah, that was a fun video.
Yeah, that was cool.
Speaking of fun video,
go for it. I know where you're going with this.
We're going to see a fun video when Tom Cruise goes to space.
Oh, I was so expecting a monkey on a motorcycle. Oh,
That video is so crazy. No, this is huge. I don't know why. I guess we're saving the best for last because, in my opinion, this is one of the most exciting things that's happened in a long time. That NASA announced this week that they're excited to work with Tom Cruise on a film aboard the International Space Station. And then Administrator Jim Bridenstine goes on to say, we need popular media to inspire a new generation of engineers and scientists to make NASA's ambitious plans a reality. So it's already kind of coming out that it sounds like he's going to be launching on a Crew Dragon capsule and likely going to the International Space Station, or the film will take place on the ISS. He might not really do too. There's a lot of people being like, well, it's not saying he's going to the ISS. The film takes place on the ISS, but maybe, who knows? But if you're going to go to space, if they're already paying for the Dragon capsule, and if NASA already has it now, I think last year, 2 years ago, they opened it up. I think it was just last year they opened up the possibility of commercial activities on the International Space Station. Why wouldn't they film it on the international? Like, that just totally makes sense to me. I think that's.
I'm just imagining the astronauts up there like doing all their science stuff because their days are scheduled down to the minute, and here's like Tom Cruise acting out a scene around him, and they're like,
pew, 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 pew. Yeah, and they're just like blasters, and
he's having this like emotional moment
with Lord Zenu.
I thought Brad Pitt already went to Neptune.
14 pigeons. I don't know. I don't know how to do a Tom Cruise impression at all. Apparently.
Help you. Help me. That's all you.
Yep. That's when the thing goes. But regardless, a lot of people, there's a lot of polarizing, like, why are they saying Tom Cruise? Like, guys, this is entertainment. I know you might not like Tom Cruise. You might not like that actor. Regardless, this will have huge impacts. Think about the reach that a superstar movie star like Tom Cruise, with the powers to be of Hollywood and all the money, producing a video that will be likely seen by millions, hundreds of millions of people, of him going up and even the experience of space. I hope the storyline's good, and I hope the storyline isn't just like some Gravity style where nothing actually makes sense with physics and stuff. But
like every Star Wars movie.
Gravity.
I feel like if NASA's this involved where they had to, give them permission to be on, I assume that the script is somewhat in line with.
No, don't assume that.
Well, okay, so Apollo
I'm
13.
sure they're all very much like, oh my God, it's Tom Cruise.
Didn't NASA? Like, I know that they didn't. They did the vomit comet for the weightless scenes in Apollo 13. I'm sure they would have killed to be able to actually go up and shoot in outer space somewhere. But I feel like NASA had some, maybe not like veto power or anything over the script, but they had some involvement with the script.
I remember
because I think they were flying the C-130. Is that the right plane?
I think it's an
vomit
L-1011
comet?
or something weird.
Whatever it is,
Something,
anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they've had involvement like that, but this will be some involvement on another level where you actually have, mission control and people interacting real time with actual space missions and an actual actor in space. Does this mean will there be another film crew? Will there be one other person up there with a camera?
There have to be, yeah.
There has to be.
Assume.
Yeah, at least probably two
one.
or three.
Because what if they fill a whole Dragon capsule? They can't really keep them on station like that. What if, hold on, I'm dead serious now. What if, before this thing actually launches, what if another segment of the ISS gets launched and it's the commercial, commercial partner? It's the set or...
Yeah, they launched the set that docks with the International Space Station, and that's where they shoot it.
That would be incredible.
I wonder if there's going to be like any challenge. So let's say because the director's the one in charge, right? They're the one that's like, it's their picture. So
producer technically, but yeah.
Okay. But they're looking at it going, okay, here's what I want this scene to look like.
Yeah.
And they're in space and they're like, I can't get it to look how I want. because in the way I wrote it in the script and the way we storyboarded it, the way, the 50 other steps to get to the point where I'm actually shooting it, we didn't know anything about space. So
we thought this room was going to be way bigger. Like what do you mean
where is the horse that I can ride on the outside of this thing? How come
they see old footage of Skylab, which was I don't think it was 9 meters wide. I think it was 7 meters wide at that point. But a huge, and people are running circles, and they're like, "Oh, okay, so we'll have Tom run in the big ring," and they're like, "Okay, Tom, go ahead and let's find the big ring," and he's like, "This is it." And it's just this tiny little, the ISS modules are relatively small.
I'm sure whatever they shoot, they're going to have some mocked up version of it down here on Earth that they can practice in. And everything.
Well, they're probably going to be spending a lot of time at Johnson Space Center at the actual ISS mock-up. Which is
Wasn't Skylab to this day the biggest volume of pressurized volume of spacecraft ever? Or
at least for sure continuous. I don't remember if the ISS is now a little tiny bit bigger, but I mean, in one single launch on a Saturn V, they threw up a space station that's still in some respects better than the ISS. Think about if they had 4 of those things docked together. Four Saturn V launches was all it was going to take to do something like that. You could have had the coolest space station ever.
Were they actually planning something like that?
I think so. I think they were planning.
Got to talk to Amy about that one.
Yeah. I mean, they were planning to, that was just the first of hopefully many like that, and it just kind of stopped. Skylab, rest in peace. Yeah, but I think to me, what do you guys think? I mean, in general, do you think this is a good thing? Would you rather see someone else go? What do you think?
There's nothing wrong with Tom Cruise.
No, Tom. I love Tom Cruise.
He's done fantastically for himself.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited about it. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I'll love to see it too.
100%. Do we know what movie it is? It has to be Mission Impossible, 10 or something, right?
I heard it's not a Mission Impossible movie.
Really? That would be It would be the perfect, we've got to go to space for this one. Oh, great. And you have Simon Pegg there, oh, great, here we go. You know what I mean? I could just see the whole cast. I could see the scenes already happening, right? And then he's like, okay, we have to sneak aboard the Falcon Heavy. Okay, I'm just going to hang on to the side of it as it launches.
Of course. And he'll do his own stunts. And
he could recreate the scene from the first one with the lasers where he's floating above.
But there's no tether holding him. He's just floating. Yeah. But he does that anyway.
This is the worst gesture I've ever made in my life.
Spider Joe.
The fact that he does his own stunts is insane. So I don't know if you guys, it's totally off topic, but Chris Hemsworth posted a thing on Instagram, a story or video of his latest movie that was on Netflix. And it's a very action heavy movie. He's, whatever, CIA bad guy kind of guy. And the stunts that he was showing, the stunt guys doing a scene for him. Oh my God. No, never. Mm-hmm. Never would I take that job. Even if I'm in the movies hanging out with these zero. Those people are nuts that do that job. I can't imagine. The scene he shot, if you guys didn't see it, is a dude, a guy that's his stunt double, rolls off of a roof, lands, hits the side of a truck, and then hits the ground, and then starts to crawl away. And the ground does have the pad that, if you've seen stunt stuff before, it looks like real dirt, but it's a pad. But the truck and everything else was very real in the scene. And you just look at it dude, I'd be out for weeks. I'm done from that one shot. You know? And they could be like, oh, we didn't get it. Come on.
I think in the industry, though, some people don't respect the fact that Tom does his own stunts. Because
it's too dangerous.
It's dangerous. It's kind of almost an arrogant thing of why don't you leave it to the trained professionals? You're taking jobs away, that type of stuff. Blah blah blah.
So there's two different ways of looking at it. I mean, some people really do appreciate that he takes those risks and is willing to do that. But there's others. Who's the guy that I'm thinking of? I want to say it was Danny Trejo or somebody like that. But he was basically saying he doesn't do his own stunts because if he hurts himself, everybody's out of work now.
Yeah, the whole movie stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two different ways of looking at it. I mean, Jackie Chan did all his own stunts and was, praised for it and broke every bone in his body at some point.
Yeah.
I think you just look at it. I don't know. Maybe, you get to the level. Like Tom Cruise has been an A-lister movie star since like the year I was born or even before. So I think maybe at this stage he just does what he wants. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be on this movie. It's my movie. I bought the script. It's my production. Like, you know what I mean? It's one thing if you're just a regular actor. Like even someone like Chris Hemsworth, who obviously is incredibly successful, he still isn't even anywhere near the decades of success that someone like Tom Cruise has had. So it's just an interesting,
And I'm sure they if they can, they schedule the production around making sure that those big dangerous stunts are done at the end and not the beginning.
That's true.
But
that's probably true. I would hope. That would be smart.
So I'm all for him going to space. Can't wait to see it.
That'll be exciting. I mean, that'll be a fun movie that will be, coming soon. Speaking of movies that are coming soon, what are you guys working on?
Can I make one more point just real quick about the Tom Cruise thing?
Of course.
Well, it's relevant. The fact that it's the ISS or space in general is going to be opened up for things like movie production, I think only helps to accelerate this, the opening up of space in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of what Bridenstine was saying in that tweet. It's kind of like, once people see that, it's not so foreign, it's not so exclusive anymore. I mean, although it's even Tom
still
Cruise,
Hollywood,
but,
yeah.
But still, it's
you're
like,
right.
I don't know. I'm not wording this very well. It sounded a lot better before I started talking. But I think it's an important step in this direction that we're going in, opening up space, both commercially and to people and for tourism and stuff like that.
No, I 100% agree. Like that is definitely, like, it'll be huge. And just seeing someone else, someone that that's the thing is like most people don't have a strong personal connection to astronauts going up. Even someone like me that I study this stuff pretty heavily, I think Bob and Doug, the first two that are going to go up on Crew Dragon, are probably the ones that I have the strongest emotional connection to recently in recent history because I have been watching a lot of their content, so I'm familiarizing with them. But a lot of people have a strong emotional connection to Tom Cruise, and and they're fans of him. So to see him do something like this, I think will be totally different than a professional astronaut doing it. Yeah.
Well, it'll have I think what maybe anyone that's upset about it, it's like, yes, obviously sending astronauts and doing science is super important and critical, but also getting, the next generation or two generations of kids excited about doing that science when they get older is also super important. And that's what Tom Cruise brings that any of your other astronauts don't, right? Is that worldwide
they're not taking
celebrity.
I don't think they're taking seats away from other astronauts. I think they're adding, a flight or, adding to the docket.
Well, if we're going to really dedicate and become a spacefaring civilization in one way or another, we have to find ways to make it valuable. Right now it's astronauts up there conducting scientific experiments, and it's like $50,000 a day to keep them up there, some crazy amount of money to support them. At some point we might be doing heavy construction. That's what Bezos wants to do up in space. This is just kind of a part of that process to me, like we have to open it up to other. If somebody can make some money by shooting a film in space, then the next thing might be somebody building something in space. It might be somebody, setting up a space hotel or something.
Yes. It's the start of the space economy.
Step by step.
Yeah,
I do
economy,
wonder from a filmmaking standpoint, you can replicate anything you can imagine with visual effects to a very convincing degree. What are they going to film that will be unique? Something that you couldn't just do with VFX here for obviously a lot cheaper. Yes, you did it, cool. But if the point of from the filmmaker perspective is I want something, if I were doing it, I would want something out of it that no one else can ever do something like that. What is that thing, and how? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, for one thing, he's going to look bloated.
Yeah.
He's not going to look like Tom Cruise. All of his blood's going to be out like this.
Doesn't
Yeah.
it take like 2 days for it to kind of settle?
Maybe.
Wow,
I'm just
I
saying,
think.
like, that's always been something for me whenever you see space movies. Like, everybody just looks normal, but, you know, you look at astronauts and they're like, you know.
Well, they need to do what Story Musgraves does before he goes to space. Story is a very seasoned NASA astronaut.
Very storied astronaut.
Very storied astronaut. And before he would fly for 6 months, he'd sleep on a inverted bed or whatever, like an inverted bed, so the blood would rush to his head more, so his body would get used to like that. And he said that he's never had like sickness, never had problems sleeping on the space station. And no one else really does that, but he just always did for some reason. And I'm surprised they don't just make that a thing. So there you go, Tom Cruise. There's your tip on how to not.
He's got like an online course for future astronauts on how to prepare.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sweet. Speaking of online courses, then, what are you guys working on?
Yeah, not videos, because those are doing nothing.
Yeah, YouTube's weird right now, isn't it?
Next week's video is about, so me and my wife, we sat down a few years ago and created what we called our like 5-year sustainability plan. It was like this idea for switching things over, kind of doing what we can in our life to live more sustainably. So electric cars, solar, batteries, all those kind of things. And the outcome of that, since we've done almost all those things, one of the outcomes is that for almost the past 3 years, I've paid less than $1 a day for electricity. And that includes fuel for my cars. So if you were to think about all of that, like we're talking, you know, family at home, somebody always in the house, air conditioning running, full bore, no, like, you know, we're not living in a hut here. With our cars, less than $1 a day. So the video focuses on basically the steps I took and like what other people can do and how to figure those things out if they also want to like lower their electricity bill and live more sustainably. So
Cool.
it's very like practical kind of focus.
Quick little question. In California, because I feel like around here, if someone has solar panels on their roof, it might almost be like, it definitely doesn't increase the value of the house, really. You know, people just see it as like, oh, you got some cool, you stuck some panels on your roof. In California, does it actually reflect in resale value to have solar versus not having solar?
Yeah. Actually, and
Consumers minded well enough to.
There's some data here. Where is it? Cedar
Falls.
Cedar Falls.
Yep. Iowa.
Okay.
It's the place where all the cedar trees fall down.
This is not okay. I need the Data Explorer, not that one. So Cedar Falls.
So Ben is typing into a website called Google Project Sunroof.
Yeah. So here you can see. Look at that. So 66% of buildings in your area there are viable, meaning they get enough energy for it to like financially make sense. There are 7 installations.
Wow. We do have a huge solar farm. Like our utilities has a giant solar field.
Yeah.
I mean,
this
giant
one doesn't
by-
have it. So I think if you plug in your address here on Google Project Sunroof, or I use Energy Sage, it'll tell you actually what the expected value increase is on your home.
Oh, cool.
So I think in San Diego, Southern California, it was like 3 to 4%, which is actually pretty good. I mean, if you think about it, like per square foot prices in this area here, maybe like $600 to $700. So if you had like a 2,000 square foot house, that's like $1.4 million plus 3%. That 3% on 1.4 million is going to be more than your solar panels cost for sure.
Yeah.
Unless you have like some mega structure or something. But
Right.
so there's that. But really, I was just looking at, we have time of use rating systems here, so you can kind of game when you pull energy and when you give it back with power walls and stuff. And so you can really, really hone in what you're paying in when you're using electricity, when you're not and stuff. And it's kind of a cool setup. So
Yeah. That's awesome.
Cool.
What about you, Joe?
I'll have to check that out myself, actually. What am I doing for Monday? I've got a pretty fun one coming up. It's what is the loudest sound ever made?
Like human made or just
The
like
Big
in
Bang?
nature or
Well,
the Big Bang
spoilers.
couldn't make it.
I I kind of start with, okay. I kind of start with just talking about how sound works in general and how like compression waves in the air create, what we consider sound and how we process that as sound. I go through the decibel scale and kind of give you an idea of what each level of decibels sound or what equates to that. Like 10 decibels is like the sound of rustling leaves, and above 195, it's not really considered sound anymore because it's just a shock wave at that point. It's just like an explosion. So from there, I kind of say, so what's the loudest sound that humans have ever made? And then it was like, okay, so what's the loudest sound that humans may have ever heard? And then what's the thing? Yeah, I kind of go up from there. It's just a big extrapolation of that.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Nice.
It's a fun little video.
That is fun. Are there any rockets on that?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Ooh. Sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah, technically rockets are the loudest things that we do if you consider anything above 195 to not be sound anymore, because I think the Saturn V rocket was like 185 decibels.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then there's the,
awesome.
oh no, that's when they were coming back down. When the Falcon 9s were falling at the Falcon Heavy launch, they created the sonic boom.
The sonic booms, yeah.
Yeah.
There was Falcon 9s falling at a Falcon Heavy launch? What happened?
They were coming down to land.
Those are called the Falcon Heavy side boosters.
Side boosters. Almost said side
Is it not a Falcon 9?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's not the same
I
rocket?
mean, it is basically.
Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy.
No, I understand that, but the side boosters of the Falcon, how many Merlin engines do each of them have?
9.
Okay.
They are essentially Falcon 9s, yes. And then quite literally, actually, on the demo mission, the 2 side cores were literally reused Falcon 9s, so you're not wrong. I'll give you that one.
You're just splitting hairs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, but
So
actually,
what's
the
the
boosters...
what documentary are you working on now, Tim?
Guess what, guys? Nope. Nope.
You're the Ken Burns of YouTube, you know that?
So people call me Dan Carlin, too. I don't know if you're familiar with Hardcore History. No, I'm not doing a long video, and I swear I'm doing a quick one. I'm going to do, just because I want to prove that I can for myself mostly. I'm going to crank out really quick another facepalm of spaceflight history. I've had like one, and then it's like stopped, and I never finished the series. But I'm gonna do really quick a quick video on the time that the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter they had the metric in English. Translational error basically, and it burned up on Mars or whatever. I still need to actually figure out what exactly happened. That's how far I am into the research, but we did choose what we're gonna do, and so I'm gonna crank that out really quick.
Look at you. You're like a regular YouTuber. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a video. Is that what you guys do? I don't know.
As long as you're enjoying it. I know you've been
feeling
the burn lately.
Yeah, I think this is kind of to prevent me from just feeling the burn, like just doing a quick, easy something, just for funsies, and then get back to finishing up like the Apollo, Artemis, and SLS stuff and all that, because there's still 2 more videos to be made out of that one that I had to re-edit.
I go back and forth.
You cut a bunch of it out.
I go back and forth so I'm now doing some videos just like really quick takes, like hot takes right here, like right after the earnings call thing, versus like, the much more in-depth kind of produced videos.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth like, dude, I could crank out just a quick little hot take, every day if I really wanted to. Cause it's super easy just to throw it together, edit once you have the kind of setup and down. So I always go back and forth, like what really matters on YouTube? Is it the production value? Is it the timeliness? There's so much that goes into, I would say, like a successful video. It always, like my first video on Tesla stuff, over 1 million views. Terrible in every quality metric you could throw at it. But just hit at the right time, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you look at that and you go, I don't know. YouTube's such, the YouTube algorithm works in mysterious ways.
Yep. Absolutely.
It do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, in that case, guys, huh?
Until next time.
We'll see you.
See you in
Our
ludicrous
future. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what we do and you want to kind of help get it out there, you can give us a nice review on any of your podcast streaming platforms, whichever one you use. That kind of helps get it out there. Also, we do have a Patreon set up, so you can join us there at patreon.com/ourludicrousfuture. You can get your name in the credits, meet a whole other group of like-minded people. It's a lot of fun. We do appreciate it. We'll see you there. Thanks.